Welcome into BSR Postgame Live. We're here on April 14th, 2015 to review an Orioles win, the oh-so-lovely totals. I am Jake English of the Bird's Eye View podcast. I'm here joined by my partner in crime, Scott Magnus, also of the Bird's Eye View podcast, and also by Dylan Atkinson of the Orioles Uncensored, fantastic podcast. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so we are indeed recapping an Orioles win, and if you'll be so kind, the first thing that we usually do is go through the box score and see if there's anything that jumps out at us.
Whoa. You're jumping way too much to conclusion. We've got to start with the most important thing. What's your drink of the week, Dylan?
My drink of the week? Well, especially since we had Andrew Miller come in the game last night against us. Couldn't go Miller time. Had to go with Natty Bo. Had to go with Natty Bo.
Good old mustache ride.
Good old mustache ride.
Jake, I'm going with the Heavy Seas Double Cannon IPA tonight. So bottoms up for an Orioles victory. Okay, Jake. Now
Absolutely.
Now you can go to the box score. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate you setting me straight on what's really important here as we watch some Orioles baseball. Looking through the box score, a couple of interesting things as far as I'm concerned is how the hits were spread out through the evening. Top of the order, 1, 2, and 3, which is a little different tonight than it usually is, being Cabrera, Machado, and Jones, came through hits for all three of them. Steve Pearce moved to the cleanup role, did not have a hit this evening. Also hitless on the night were Jonathan Scope and Chris Davis, the designated hitter, and Alejandro De Aza, who was my good for this week because of his performance at the plate. As far as Orioles pitching is concerned, we had 7 strong innings from Miguel Gonzalez. We had 2/3 of an inning from Kevin Gausman, and we had 1.1 inning, a 4-out save from Zach Britton. From the Yankees, if you'll allow me to scroll up, fewer hits, certainly. Again, the middle of the order for them, McCann and Jones hitless, as well as Stephen Drew. Thank goodness we managed to keep him from going yard this evening. And then pitching for the Yankees, 7 innings from CC Sabathia, an inning from Chris Martin as well. So, gentlemen, without further ado, let's go ahead and look into it. Scott, let's start with you. What was your highlight from this game?
All right, there's a ton of highlights, but my personal favorite was Jim Palmer talking about flubbering during the entire 4th inning, with telling Miguel Gonzalez to stop flubbering around. And I think flubbering was mentioned about 6 or 7 times within a span of 2 minutes. So Jim Palmer mentioning flubber, that gets my top highlight of the game.
That sounds quasi inappropriate, is what that is. Does Jim Palmer have a definition for that word?
He can show you his flubber whenever you ask.
I was afraid of that. You know what? That is my fault for asking that question in that way. Dylan, you're going to have to save us. What is your highlight for this evening?
Gonna have to save us, huh? My highlight and my lowlight are actually the same. For tonight, I trust Delman Young more than Alejandro De Aza in the outfield. And yes, I am overreacting.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a little bit. It's absolutely hysterical that what we've seen from Alejandro De Aza tonight is terrible defense in a time when you usually see that from Delman Young. Yep. For me, my highlight was Caleb Joseph's first career triple. That was certainly a surprise to see, but the ball got past center fielder, and there he was on third base. Scott, what was your low light for this evening?
It's got to be freaking bad with Kevin Gausman during that 8th inning. He had a bloop single, 2 ground balls, and drop fly ball by Alejandro De Aza. Gausman actually pitched pretty well, actually, in terms of pitch selection, and actually his split finger was really good and on tonight. It just didn't seem like the balls flew through the field right tonight. So Kevin Gausman definitely on the bad side of the stat line, but overall I think he actually pitched pretty decently.
Okay. Now, Dylan, tell me, let me be surprised. What is your low light for the evening?
Let's see. Oh, yeah. I trust Delman Young more than Alejandro De Aza in the outfield for the night. And yes, I am overreacting.
That is really, really low.
All right, my low light was Alejandro De Aza dropping the ball in the top of the 8th inning. That was There was nothing good about that. Nothing at all. It was the second straight game where we had it. No, not the second straight. It was the second game where we had a very catchable ball in the outfield, which wasn't reined in. And for a team that's famous for its defense, that was not what we wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's break down the game a little bit. I want to go ahead and look through the highlights and the other things we want to bring up from the offense as far as the offense was concerned. And I thought, especially early, the story of the game was Adam Jones.
Man is absolutely on fire. That home run that he hit, pretty amazing. And then also that sac fly deep in right field turned out to be, a big run at the end of the game. So it's that kind of situational baseball that a club leader like Adam Jones is going to bring. And I think, some people are like, he's probably not going to be as good as he was in previous seasons. But Adam Jones is the constant force on this team, and he picks up his team when his team needs him.
Well, it's like the advertisement said, when Adam Jones is not watching baseball or listening to baseball, he's hitting the baseball, and that's exactly what he did tonight.
This is what happens when Adam Jones bypasses the middlemen, okay?
Dylan, it seemed like tonight the best the Yankees could do was get him to hit a sac fly with a runner in scoring position. I mean, is Adam Jones just the most locked in that you've seen him?
Honestly, right now, I really think so. I mean, I believe now it's 4 home runs on the homestand for him. He's just completely locked in right now. Not seeing him chase as many pitches out of the zone as he usually does, and even the ones that he is chasing, it's ones that a normal major league hitter would absolutely swing at. I mean, I've never seen him this locked in, at least for a couple of years, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
I was actually going to pop in here. I was actually looking at this today, and I'm actually going to write an article about it probably tomorrow on birdseyeviewbaltimore.com. But I was actually looking at outside the zone swing percentages, and that was a big issue with the Orioles in the past. They're actually down 4 percentage points this year in terms of outside swing percentage. 33% last year, down to 29% early in the season. That's a pretty good sign for batters that are still developing the strike zone.
And a lot of that has to do with scope.
Yeah.
So far early on, I mean, Scope's been looking pretty disciplined at the plate. Hopefully that continues throughout the whole season.
I think you're so right about Scope. One last thing about Adam Jones, talking about swinging outside of the zone. I've seen him hit home runs this season on pitches outside the zone. I've also seen him swing at those pitches low and away that we all cringe at and hit them into right field or hit them up the middle on a weak single. For right now, while he's locked in, while he is, the best hitter on the team and all that kind of other stuff, he's swinging at bad pitches and doing good things with them. So I think we need to remind ourselves of this when we're pissed at him later in the season when he's not quite as hot.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to talk about people that are not in the zone, though, can we talk about Chris Davis and how he continues to struggle at the plate? He had weak contact, ground balls in the dirt, and plenty more strikeouts again tonight. And it's not shocking that he had relative little success against a left-handed pitcher like Sabathia, but this has to be concerning, the amount of strikeouts that he's getting up there at the plate. He just does not look like a Major League Baseball player at this time.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like he just can't find a consistent stride, a consistent load in his swing. Can't find anything consistent at all in his swing, stride, anything like that. Seems like he may just be pressing a little bit, coming back from 25-game suspension. I feel like the biggest thing is just getting him to relax and just tell him just chill out,
Yeah, and right now he was dropped in the lineup tonight, which I think is a great sign.
Yes.
I think it's really important that while he's struggling, he not be put in a position to hurt the team any worse than he already is. He was dropped down to 6 tonight. I think that's a great sign coming from Buck Showalter, and I'm more than happy to let Chris Davis work this stuff out in the 6, in the 7 hole, so that he can get back to being a productive hitter.
I completely agree, and I remember we saw a couple flashes in last season where Davis was dropped to the 7th hole in the season where he's hitting 196, and anytime he got dropped down to the 7th hole, he was able to get a decent groove back, and then he got bumped up to the lineup again and couldn't produce again. So if he stays down in the 6th or 7th spot to figure it out, I agree with you, Jake. I think it will be a good sign.
Well, don't tell me that I'm right too often because it doesn't happen that often. I want to talk specifically about something that I got wrong in the offseason, and that was the Everth Cabrera signing. I poo-pooed this signing from the get-go. I thought it was a bad move. I thought it was unnecessary. I thought it was a lot of money for a player that wouldn't see that much time. Everth Cabrera, I wanted to talk a little bit offensively with what he did tonight because he had a great read on the base pads in the bottom of the third inning on Manny Machado's seeing eye single going first to third. And I especially want to talk about that because his base running came under a lot of criticism from me and from others in spring training, where he was getting a lot of thrown out on the base paths for acting like a nincompoop left and right. So I don't know about you guys, but I so far look like an idiot, and I love it.
I am completely the same right now because obviously when the Orioles signed Cabrera, we had no idea that anything was going to be going wrong with Hardy. And who knows where Cabrera would be right now if Hardy was still on the team. And right now, from the get-go, I thought that he would be the one to get sent down to AAA as soon as Hardy returned. Mm-hmm. But from what he's done so far, I think he's making a very strong case to stay on this roster.
I totally agree. This kind of pops in the defense section, but Cabrera, is really impressive at the shortstop, more so than maybe even Ryan Flaherty, just in terms of range and arm. And I kind of come back to if he wasn't on this team, I think they'd be rushing Hardy back. You look at last season, and Hardy came back, and you could definitely see that he was having issues with not just power at bat, but also arm strength was down a little bit too last year. Giving this time for Hardy to kind of rehabilitate and kind of take his time back is going to be important, especially for a player that you're going to have for another 2 years past this year.
Yeah, and the other thing about Cabrera is the whole reason at the beginning of the season that I thought that Cabrera would be the guy to go down the minors, so Dylan, I agree with you wholeheartedly, is because of what Ryan Flaherty can do defensively all around the diamond. He can play every position in the infield. He can play the corner outfield spots. I think that Everth Cabrera has shown that he's very, very shaky at second base in spring training, but he also showed that he could play the outfield capably. And not only could he play the corner spots, but he could play center field in a pinch for that 1 to 4 games that Adam Jones is going to miss out there. That may be enough value for Buck Showalter to say, okay, Ryan Flaherty, you got to go to the minors when we got to send somebody down. I think Everth Cabrera is making a very strong case for himself, despite what I said about him earlier.
Now, with Hardy coming back soon, I assume it'll be soon, with Cabrera having the versatility to go to the outfield now, would that present any case to give Lowe the boot instead of Flaherty? Because we all know Buck loves Flaherty.
Yeah, but Scott's always talking about roster flexibility, and Scott, I'm going to need you to jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we send Lowe down, we have to DFA him and possibly lose him from the roster, but if we send Flaherty down, who has options because he was a Rule 5 guy in 2012, we can keep him. Am I right about that?
You are right about that. I understand what Dylan is saying, though, from the aspect of Everth was played during spring training in the outfield, but the whole point is, he doesn't have any major league experience really as an outfielder, so, by the same aspect, Chris Davis was played in the outfield during spring training. I don't think we can quite put the aspect that Cabrera could be an effective outfielder in a major league setting. I do find it interesting with Lowe because he really doesn't have a place on this team right now as a fifth outfielder. So I can actually see the Orioles possibly making a trade for him, and maybe I don't know. The Orioles seem to be cash strapped because that's why they're trading their 74th pick, so maybe they can get some money back. In return. They
can package up Lowe and a draft pick for a couple of minor leaguers. It'll be fine.
We can't trade any more draft picks. Only competitive balanced draft picks can be traded, just as an FYI.
I'm trying to make Scott crazy. All right, well, we talked about not real outfielders in Cabrera and possibly Lowe. Let's talk about more not real outfielders. When we talk about David Lowe, or when we talk about Delman Young, rather, and we saw some interesting things from Delman Young offensively tonight. Dylan, what was your favorite Delman Young offensive moment of the evening?
Offensive moment of the evening? I know I turned off the TV a couple times, but the only one at bat that I saw of Delman Young was an infield single.
How does Delman Young get an infield single? How does that happen?
He's fast, man. He's so fast. I think he can beat David Lowe in the race any day.
the legend of Delman Young in the regular season continues.
It's like Lord of the Rings, Jake, where he's like a dwarf, so he's really good at sprinting, but over long distances, not very good.
Not only we're joking about Delman Young's speed, but remember, I mean, he was a fleet of foot guy when he was drafted as the first overall draft pick, a million years ago, whatever. And not only did he have an infield single tonight, but he also scored on second base from a bloop hit into right field from Caleb Joseph this evening. So it's nice to see Delman Young providing something other than swinging the bat really, really hard.
The Star of David was shining down on him tonight.
Thank you, Scotty. Thanks for taking us there. I appreciate that. Last thing that I had, and I'll kick it off to you guys to make sure I haven't missed anything. Last thing I had for this evening, offensively, was Caleb Joseph hit his first major league triple in the bottom of the seventh inning. And boy, howdy, he really legged that out. As soon as it got past Ellsbury in center field, he made no hesitation about coming around.
Oh yeah. For a catcher, he's always been a little bit of speed there. I know when he was in the minors for a little bit, and he was having trouble breaking club with the major league roster at any point. I know they switched him around to left field, right field, first base, third base, anything like that, just to try and make him a little bit more versatile so that he can make a major league roster. Because obviously in the minor leagues, they actually list him as an offensive catcher instead of defense. But I feel like his dues in Double-A playing in the outfield kind of helped him out with that triple there.
Well, and not to mention about Caleb Joseph. But Caleb Joseph was on base 3 times tonight. Single, triple, but also reached on an error tonight, too. So he was on base a pretty good proportion tonight. He definitely was, an offensive force that at that bottom of the lineup that you weren't expecting. But it's great to get those assistants from the bottom of the lineup like a Caleb Joseph every once in a while.
Love Caleb Joseph.
All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll switch over to the defense. First thing I want to mention, and I hate to do it, but I'm going to go back to Delman Young. I saw a play from Delman Young that was a reasonable facsimile of a right fielder. On the Chris Young double to right field, Delman Young got over there pretty quickly, grabbed the ball, turned, and made a pretty strong throw to second base. The throw ended up skipping past the guy covering second. And Manny Machado was there to back it up. But I saw that play and I thought, wait a minute, that's Delman Young. I've seen Delman Young play the outfield. That's not right. But I was surprised.
Look, Jake, this whole situation comes back to when it's a return or a decent play like that. That's fine. But we're only going to be able to see Delman Young truly be as awful as he is when he has to make that running stab for the ball on the fly. Or if he's playing in right field at Camden Yards, getting down into that corner right by the gate and him running into it smack dab and getting a concussion in the process.
All right, so we've got Delman Young, our favorite outfielder.
Oh yeah.
Let's go on. We talk about getting shift faced all the time when it comes to Chris Davis. Davis hit into the shift tonight in the bottom of the second inning, and the Yankees, with their advanced age and perhaps some health issues with CC Sabathia's knee, was unable to cover first base and botched a double play because of it. We talk all the time about the Orioles' defensive prowess. It was kind of interesting to see that work against the Yankees tonight.
That just came back to Shishera made a terrible throw over to second base, so I just chalk it up to poor fundamentals, but there was a lot of poor fundamentals on all sides of the ball today. It just got to keep the head in the game, as simple as that. So,
yeah.
Well, Dylan, you were the one championing this cause, so let's hear it. What do you have on the play with Alejandro Diaza in that Kevin Gausman inning? What happened?
Well, at first it seemed like it was a pretty good pitch by Gausman. I was surprised that the ball even got hit that far in the first place. And when it was going out, I thought it was actually going to get out of here. But as soon as I saw him drop that ball, like, I've seen Diaza make some great routes on some balls, and just like Scott mentioned earlier before we went live, he mentioned it, I believe it was like the fifth inning, on a great route that Diaza took. It's just something that you don't see from Diaza very often, and it's one that could have costed the Orioles big, but thankfully it didn't.
Yeah, I mean, even in the top of the eighth, Diaz took a great route, and even during that play that he actually botched the ball, he took a great route. Another outfielder like a Delman Young would never have gotten to that ball. Diaz has the range to get to that ball, and you know, it's a shame that it bounced off his glove. And Buck even said during the postgame show that he didn't think that Diaz should have been charged with the error. I think that's him standing up for his guy.
Mhm.
But it's just frustrating because it's just like you feel like you should have been out of that inning, and that's 2 games in a row where runs have scored on balls falling out of gloves.
Well, I mean, the ball hit Diaz's glove. Yeah, he shouldn't be charged with an error. I mean, come on. What do you want him to do? Catch it? Come on.
I mean, at that point, how are you ever going to give an error to an outfielder? Basically, if you're going to be like, he may have got it, but he may not have, so we can't give him an error.
Let's not pick on him. He was just over there near the ball when it hit his glove. That's all. He was a mere victim of circumstance.
Hey, Jake, can we go to pitching? And because there is an absolutely dominant pitching performance tonight, Miguel Gonzalez.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about Miguel Maibel.
Okay, Miguel Gonzalez, you look at his stuff tonight, and it wasn't, great command at the beginning, but he started getting that command halfway through the game and started putting people down. By the end of the game, he had, 10 strikeouts over 7 innings pitched and only 1 walk. And you go back to that Tampa Bay game, 5 walks over, 6 innings, and it was a big concern of whether it's going to be a command issue. If Miguel Gonzalez can continue to put up that kind of strikeout performance over 7 innings, watch out, folks. Miguel Gonzalez is going to have another banner season in terms of ERA, and his FIP is going to come along for the ride, too, if he's going to be putting up 10 strikeouts to 1 walk. So Miguel Gonzalez did a great game tonight just in terms of command with his pitches. Not, not great pitches in terms of whiff, not great velocity, but just really good command of the strike zone. So kudos for Miguel Gonzalez. Really good sign. Kind of shows the aspect of this team has talent. It's just a question of whether they're going to be on some nights and off some nights. And Miguel Gonzalez is on tonight.
Yeah, I mean, and just like you said, it was a great outing by him. Career high 10 strikeouts. It was really an outing that the Orioles needed, especially heading into tomorrow. I mean, you can't rely on Bud Norris the way he did in spring training, the way he performed on the home opener. You can't rely on Bud Norris to avoid a sweep from the Yankees. It's tough enough to rely on him right now to go out there and start a game in which we're trying to win the series against the Yankees. So, again, just like you said, great start by Miguel, great bounce back start in regards to his start in Tampa Bay where he walked 5 batters. So, kudos to Miguel there.
And if either of you can answer this question, please jump in. I want to talk about his pitch efficiency. I felt like Miguel Gonzalez got into pitch count trouble early where it was really high, but he ended up pitching through the 7th, and yes, he was over 100 pitches for the outing, but I felt like he was efficient when he needed to be late to keep himself with enough left in the tank to make it through the 7th inning. Is that just me, or is there anything to the fact that he seemed to get a little more efficient as the game went on?
No, he definitely got more efficient. You look at the first 2 innings, he was pitching right around like 18 or 19 pitches per inning. And then as the game started to go on, he had a few 9-pitch innings, 10-pitch innings. So by the first 3 innings, he had 58 pitches. By the time he got to the 5 innings, he was only at 80 pitches, 94 pitches after 6 innings, and I think it was 106 pitches after 7 innings. So he definitely improved as the game went on. And again, I think that just comes back to enhancing his command as the game went on, and that's how we also saw a higher amount of strikeouts as the game progressed as well.
Last question I have for Miguel Gonzalez, and either of you can jump in if I've missed something, but he allowed a runner in just about every inning that he had, at least the first 5 innings, and that is really a signature move from Miguel Gonzalez, is getting through with a high left-on-base percentage, or high left-on-base percentage. Scott, what can you tell us from a sabermetrician standpoint, from a stat head standpoint? What does a high left-on-base percentage tell you about Miguel Gonzalez as a starter? Is it luck? Is it a particular ability? Is it the fact that he's got a strong defense? Is there anything that can be drawn from that stat?
Everyone would basically come back and say that over a game or in a given situation, LOB percentage or left-on-base percentage at a high percentage rate is going to be luck. It's just dumbass luck. But in Miguel Gonzalez's situation, he's actually posted some high left on base percentages for several years now. So the question is, why does this pitcher specifically have a left on base percentage that's high? There's been a lot of people that have looked into this, but as a fly ball pitcher, which Miguel Gonzalez is, and I read all about this about BSR a few months ago, Miguel Gonzalez has the ability to derive weak contact fly balls, and he has an ability to get a lot of infield fly balls. And when you're able to do that, you're able to basically strand a lot more runners and not have them advance around the bases and tag up. So Miguel Gonzalez again tonight, a lot of weak contact, a lot of weak pop-ups. A few times they were driven hard. That's going to happen every so often as a fly ball pitcher, but that weak contact really helps a lot in stranding runners. So Miguel Gonzalez was able to strand runners with weak contact, but again tonight he did a great job of stranding runners by using the ultimate thing, the strikeout.
Mm-hmm. And just like Scott said, a lot of people can come to a conclusion that the high left on base percentage can be a big thing with luck. I mean, he had around 85% of left on base percentage last year. A lot of people would say that's luck, but who knows? It could be just be a simple thing of he just likes pitching out of the stretch. He may just like the pressure of guys on base. Nobody really knows. But either way, just like Scott said, he's been doing it over the past couple of years. It's been working for him. It puts us in little tight situations as fans, but it's working for him. He's getting a lot of weak contact. So just again, kudos to Miguel for tonight.
Yep, he was a top 10 pitcher last year in terms of infield fly ball percentage. I think that's an interesting stat.
Whew.
I'm sure that you do. As far as other interesting performances that we saw tonight, let's go on to Kevin Gausman. Dylan, what did you see from Kevin Gausman in his relief appearance tonight?
He's been struggling early on, but for tonight, his split change was on point. He was locating it perfectly. But just like what Scott was mentioning earlier, BAPA pretty much killed him.
You see what I deal with on Monday nights? Do you see this?
I get it. Am I never coming on the show again? But even though he allowed 1 or 2 runs, a few hits here and there, I still believe it was a pretty good outing by Kevin Gausman. He was able to locate his fastball well, had some good movement on it, had tremendous movement as always on a split change, and he was able to command that pretty well. So I believe it was a pretty good relief outing by Kevin Gausman.
Now, Scott, did you see any of those phantom curveballs that he reported to Steve Molesky out of his last appearance?
You mean the slurve?
Look, I'm not going to get into characterization of the pitch. I live in a post-pitch classification world. I don't see the difference between a slider and a curve, Scott. I can't do this. But did you see the curve?
I think I saw it like 2 or 3 times. He definitely didn't rely on it. I agree with Dylan. He really predominantly used his fastball and splitter, exactly what he should be doing out of the bullpen as a 2-pitch pitcher. And then he could work on his slurve in bullpen sessions and in the occasional situation where he's not in a high leverage situation, which he wasn't tonight.
Yeah, and the thing is about that splitter is that it was good against lefties and righties. I mean, that is a knockout pitch if he's got it on, and Dylan used the exact right word, which is on point. Before we move on to Zach Britton, and I do want to talk about Zach Britton's outing, let me throw a curveball here at you guys. I want to talk about CC Sabathia.
Curveball or slurve?
Well, let's call it a slurve.
Okay.
Let me throw a slurve at you. Let's talk about CC Sabathia. He was not incredibly ineffective. I mean, he got through 7 innings. Yes, he gave up some runs, but is the talk of the demise of CC Sabathia as a starter a little premature, or were you simply not impressed with what you saw? Dylan, what was your take on CC Sabathia tonight from the Yankees?
7 innings, 4 runs allowed, 7 strikeouts. I mean, honestly, when it comes to the Orioles rotation, I'll take that on almost any given night out. So I was kind of okay with CC's start tonight. A lot of people are starting to write him off. I've kind of hopped on that train a little bit, but I'm not 100% there yet because I know that if I do write him off, he's just going to come right back and bite me in the ass. So And I know a big thing with his drop-off last year had a little bit of injuries. I know he dropped the weight, so he dropped the velocity on his fastball. So we'll starting to get some more answers as the season goes along. Probably through May or June, we'll start to see what kind of pitcher we're going to see out of CC Sabathia, whether we still need to fear him as a number one or not, or whether or not he's just going to be a back of the rotation starter that we don't need to worry about that much. So I've started to write him off a little bit, but I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to do it 100% yet.
Scotty, what about you? What did you see from CC tonight?
I'm always willing to write off a Yankee, so he's done for me.
He's dead to me.
Dead to me.
Are you going to turn your back to him?
Yeah, 1 second.
Nice.
Nice.
All right, let's go ahead and do it. Let's talk about Zach Britton. One thing I'll note is that Buck Showalter went to Zach Britton with 2 outs in the 8th inning, showing that Zach Britton not only can get the 4-out save, but that Buck Showalter is not tied to the everyone has a role, and Zach Britton pitches in the 9th inning or bust. Dylan, what did you see from Zach Britton tonight?
A bunch of filthy sinkers. That's all he's ever going to throw, and it's always going to work for him. Between 93 and 97 miles per hour tonight, it looked like, and it seemed from my standpoint, which is TV behind me right now, it seemed like it was dropping about 5 to 8 inches, and it was just complete filth. He had great command of it, and I was very impressed by him, especially being able to come back out in the 9th inning after going back in the dugout after the 8th.
Can we just end the summary with that? It's just filthy. There needs to be no further discussion about Zach Britton besides filthy.
Yeah, and I have been tooting the horn. I have been repeating the refrain of we need to be careful about Zach Britton this year. He can't possibly repeat what he did last year. And again, like Everett Cabrera, he basically shows that I know nothing about baseball, and he's going to continue to play well. So Scott, you've said so perfectly. Let's end the discussion there. Let's go to.
I'm so glad that you picked the Nationals to beat the Orioles, by the way, in the World Series for your predictions. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and do bottom line takeaways. Scott Magnus, what is your bottom line takeaway from this particular game?
My bottom line takeaway from this game is no matter what the weather is in April, the Orioles are going to force a game on Baltimore in order to get it in. No matter if there's 6,000 people, whether there's 300 people in there, they do not want a doubleheader game with the Yankees in town. They want to keep those Yankee fans in the stadium.
All right, fair enough. Dylan, what's your bottom line takeaway from today's game?
All right, I know I wrote something different on our little sheet here, but I'm definitely gonna have to go with just getting the win tonight. Gonzalez had a great start, and it's good to know that we're not relying on Bud Norris to avoid a sweep tomorrow. So hopefully he can come out and give us somewhat of a decent chance to win tomorrow and win the series.
I think you said it perfect. My bottom line takeaway is I'm going to Boston on Friday and Saturday to watch games from the outfield in the bleachers. I hope to God the Boston fans are kind to my wife and I, but I do not want to limp into Boston and watch my team that has lost the series to the Blue Jays, then lost the series to the Yankees. Don't do this to me, Orioles. This week is big tonight so that we have the possibility of taking the series tomorrow. I need this. Look, Orioles, you've been so rough on me my entire adult life. 14 years of losing. An excruciating loss in the ALCS. Don't do this to me. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and move to tomorrow. Tomorrow's game is going to be Bud Norris, the hero of the home opener, versus Nathan Eovaldi. Am I even saying that right? I feel like with the Yankees roster this year, it's a big exercise in saying, wait a minute, who's that?
JP,
but Eovaldi.
The O is silent.
All right, fine. Well, Scott Magnus, you are the expert not only in this, but so many other things. But you being the expert in how to pronounce this guy's last name, tell me about this pitcher that we're going to see tomorrow.
Sure. So this individual that you probably have never seen before used to pitch for the Marlins. He's a young pitcher, right-handed pitcher with some powerful fastball, 96-mile-per-hour fastball. He also follows it up with an 86-mile-per-hour slider, and on the occasion, he throws a curveball about every 6 to 10% of the time. It's a 76-mile-per-hour curve, but predominantly you're going to see 60% fastball, 20% or so slider, and then a mixture of a curve and occasionally a sinker in there. But nice command pitcher. Pretty decent K numbers, right around 6 to 7 K per 9, but really low walks per 9 innings, right around 1.5 to 2.5, and a low home run per 9 inning, and that's because he's a ground ball pitcher. 45% ground ball last year. You're going to expect a lot of ground balls, so it's going to be great to have that improved Yankees defense behind him this year. It's going to be important for the Orioles to kind of put together a lot of line drives and string along this game. He's often had issues with line drives in the past, 22+% last year, and he actually in his last start was over 30%. So his BABIP has occasionally been above 300. That's to be expected for a person that has a line drive percentage above 22%. So the Orioles may not get home runs tomorrow night, but they're going to get a lot of singles and doubles, and they're going to have to string that along in sequence in order to put their runs together, I think, tomorrow night.
All right. Well, that is the report on the opposing pitcher. Dylan, from just your gut reaction, who needs to have a big game for the Orioles tomorrow in order to bring this series home and win the game tomorrow?
My key X factor tomorrow night is going to be Steve Pearce. He's
Good call.
He's off to a little bit of a slow start ever since his 2 hot games in Tampa Bay. He's hitting 160. Is that true that he's hitting 161 right now? It's
Yep.
not very impressive. It's starting to get me a little bit worried, but hopefully he'll hit a hot streak, and hopefully he'll pull in some RBIs tomorrow night.
Great, fantastic. Well, that's going to wrap us up here for the post-game show. Thank you so much for watching Post-Game Live on channel BSR. Before we get out of here, I want to talk about what else is going on in the Birdosphere online this week. Dylan, I can't say enough good things about the Orioles Uncensored podcast. It is one of the best things going on in the internet when you need content for the Orioles. Can you tell us about what's going on this week over there?
Sure. Right now, just got posted up by our boy Danny Magic. He and Ryan Blake over at Utah Street Report have been doing this big Baltimore drought bracketology. Pretty much voting for your favorite players of the dark days of the Orioles. Right now, posted on Orioles Uncensored is the Final Four. You got Melvin Moore against Miguel Tejada, and you got Brian Roberts against Koji. It's definitely some tough matchups there. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to write up for tomorrow, but I'll have something up. But a lot of good stuff coming from us. I'm not sure if we're going to have a podcast up this week, but starting next week, we should be starting getting going weekly and everything. A lot of good things coming from us.
And the best part is Game of Thrones is back, so.
Game of Thrones is back. Yep. Wilkes and Ryan love to talk that on the podcast, and
yep.
That's when I usually back out of it because I have no idea what's going on.
That's right. Homer blend into the hedge.gif, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Scott Magnus, you, I believe, are a member of the Bird's Eye View podcast, if I'm not mistaken. What's going on from Bird's Eye View this week?
Bird's Eye View podcast just put out their 117th episode just yesterday, actually, so you should go over there and check it out. We review the first week of Orioles baseball and just kind of talk shop a little bit and talk about why the starting pitcher may be struggling so badly, and also talk about Kevin Gausman and that mysterious slurve. So if you want to hear about slurves, check out the Bird's Eye View podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Double Twist, Miro, and all those other third-party applications.
You make that sound so appealing. Scott, I think I'm going to listen to that show, that Bird's Eye View show. I think I'm going to listen to it. You should definitely also make sure that you're listening to other BSR network podcasts. An announcement I want to make is we're going to go ahead and add a show for the Wizards. The Zardcast is going to be joining the BSR network later this week. It's a great podcast about the Washington Wizards. Also, make sure that you're checking out the daily podcast, which is BSR, or Baltimore Sports Today, BST. Zach Wilt and Jabby Burns break down Orioles and Ravens and Terps content every day of the week. And also make sure you check out Cody Colston's BSR Weekly Update, which can be found every week on channel BSR. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to have BSR Live after each game, quick reaction, some insight if we can do that. It's hosts from the BSR network as well as our friends and guests from the rest of the Birdosphere. Again, our thanks to Dylan Atkinson for his insights this evening. That's going to wrap us up. Orioles win come back and see us again.
Orioles in the win column.
That'll do it for BSR Post Game Live. Thanks very much.